Have you ever been told to just believe in yourself, as if confidence is some kind of light switch you can just flip on? Well, what if I told you that almost everything we've been taught about confidence is completely backward? Today, we're going to tear down those myths and give you a real, evidence-based formula for building it from the ground up. And this quote right here, it gets to the absolute heart of the matter. We all do this, right? We wait until we feel ready. We wait for that magical moment of inspiration or confidence to strike before we take the leap. But real confidence, it isn't found in waiting. It's forged in the fire. In that moment, you decide to just go for it, especially when you're terrified. So here it is. This is the big idea, the fundamental shift. The myth we've all been sold is that you need confidence before you can take action. But the truth, the formula that actually works, is the complete opposite. Action has to come first. You take action consistently, and that action becomes the input that creates confidence as the output. All right, so let's break this down a bit more. You simply can't think your way to being confident. It's not something you can summon on command. It's something you earn. And, this is exactly why standing in front of the mirror repeating, "I am confident" over and over again, well, it usually just feels kind of hollow. I absolutely love this concept. Your mood follows the plan. It's not about waiting to feel good to do something. It's about making a plan and sticking to it. It's about keeping those tiny promises you make to yourself day after day. Every time you tell yourself you're going to do something and then you actually do it, especially when it's hard, you're casting a vote for the person you want to become. And that is the real stuff, the raw material of genuine confidence. So, okay, this all sounds good in theory, right? But what does it actually look like in the real world? Well, let's dive into a case study. This is a pretty intense story about how entrepreneur Leila Hormozi built her confidence, not with positive thinking, but by being pushed to her absolute limit. So just try to put yourself in her shoes. She's 21 years old, she moves across the country with no job lined up, and she ends up in a position that's 100% commission sales, something she knows absolutely nothing about. I mean, talk about feeling like an imposter, right? And the clock is just ticking. She knew she had about 3 months before her savings completely dried up. And you can see the pressure right here in the numbers. $5,000 might sound like a decent cushion, but when your rent is $1,400 a month, plus all your other expenses, yeah, that bank account is draining, fast. The fear wasn't just in her head. It was real. It was urgent. And here's the kicker. Quitting wasn't really an option because she knew that would just make her feel even worse about herself. So after weeks and weeks of grinding, reading books, practicing her pitch, facing rejection over and over, she finally did it. She made her first sale. And in that one moment, she said it wasn't about the money or what her team thought. It was the internal shift. That single piece of evidence, the proof that she could do it, shattered all her old limiting beliefs. That was the birth of real confidence. Okay, that story is the perfect setup for our practical toolkit for how you can start building your own evidence. And the first tool is all about capturing it. You see, our brains are basically wired for survival, which means they're like Velcro for bad experiences and Teflon for good ones. They hang on to the failures. So you have to intentionally feed your brain objective data about your successes. And this is what we're talking about when we say evidence-based confidence. This isn't about that fleeting dopamine hit you get when someone gives you a compliment. Nope. This is about you becoming a detective for your own life, building a case file of your achievements, no matter how small. That data becomes a solid foundation that can't be washed away by one bad day or a negative thought. And this chart shows exactly why tracking is so incredibly powerful. That squiggly, volatile line up top, that's how we feel about our progress. It's a total roller coaster, right? One good day, we're on top of the world. One bad day, and we feel like a total failure. But that bottom line, the steady one, that's the truth. That's the actual data. When you track it, you see that progress is almost always heading up and to the right. The data literally overrides the drama. Okay, so tracking is huge, but you might be sitting there thinking, that's great, but what if I don't have any wins to track? What if I'm starting from absolute zero? And that's a totally fair question. That's where our second tool comes in. You have to engineer your wins by starting impossibly small. Let's use a classic example, something that terrifies a lot of people, public speaking. You don't start by signing up for a TED Talk. Heck no. You start with something so small it's almost laughable, like just running a 60-second part of your team meeting. Then, once you've proven you can do that, you level up. Each step builds on the evidence of the last one, creating this ladder of confidence that can take you from a quick update on a Zoom call all the way to the main stage. Do you see what's happening here?
The whole goal is to set the bar so low that you literally cannot fail. This creates a cycle of winning. You check off that tiny task, your brain gets a little reward, and you build momentum. And over time, this actually starts to shift your identity. You stop being the person who's bad at public speaking, and you start becoming the person who follows through and gets things done.
And this brings us to the final and maybe the most crucial piece of the entire puzzle. You've broken your goals down into tiny steps, you're ready to track your wins, but there's still that big, scary feeling that stops you from taking even that first tiny step: fear. So what do? The answer isn't to get rid of the fear, it's to do it scared. This is such a brilliant way to think about it. Fear looks like this huge, intimidating ocean that you could never possibly cross, but that's just an illusion. In reality, it's incredibly wide, but it's also incredibly shallow. The anticipation of the fear, the thought of stepping in, is almost always way worse than the thing itself. Once you take that step, you realize you can wade right through to the other side. So here's a super practical mental trick you can use. Don't try to fight the fear or argue with it. Just acknowledge it. Say, "Hey fear, I see you. Thanks for trying to keep me safe." Then just visualize tucking it into your pocket or your purse. You're taking it along for the ride, but it's not in the driver's seat anymore. You are. Because remember, emotion follows motion. The moment you start moving, the feeling of fear starts to lose its power. So at the end of the day, that's the framework. Confidence isn't some magical quality you're either born with or you're not. It's a skill. It's a skill that you build piece by piece through action, through evidence, and through the willingness to just be a little uncomfortable. So the only question left for you is this: what is one tiny tweak, one impossibly small step that you can take today, even and especially if it scares you?